the night the nation took its first breath. What if your life began at the exact second a nation was born? Your first cry echoing with the fire of independence. That is the fate of Salim Sinai, the boy whose heartbeat matched India's first moment of freedom. Tonight, we open Midnight's Children, the extraordinary novel by Salman Rushdie, first published in 1981. Rushdie, born in Bombay in 1947, carries in his veins the same year, the same rupture, as his protagonist. Educated at Cambridge, once a young advertising copywriter who wrote the slogan, "Naughty but nice," Rushdie would become one of the most daring voices in modern literature. His work reshaped the English novel, mixing politics, myth, and mischief with a style that sings. When Midnight's Children appeared, it was an earthquake. It won the Booker Prize in 1981, the Booker of Bookers in 1993, and again, the Best of the Bookers in 2008, a triple crown that no other novel has achieved. Critics called it the book that reinvented the novel in English. At its center is a single dazzling idea, that one boy's body can contain the map of a nation's destiny. As Salim himself says, "I was born in the city of Bombay once upon a time." No, that won't do. There's no getting away from the date. I was born in Dr. Narlikar's nursing home on August 15th, 1947. From that breathless first line, Rushdie invites us into a world where history becomes personal and memory itself becomes magic. So if you love stories that taste like spice and thunder, where history crackles with humor and heartbreak, stay with me. Click like, subscribe to Echoes of Books. And if you want to help this series continue, you can donate through the link below. Every small gesture keeps the conversation alive about books, about imagination, about the world that words can build. A thousand voices inside one man. Every great novel begins with a birth, but few with one so thunderous. Midnight's Children opens at the very moment India gains independence from British rule, August 15th, 1947, the midnight hour when the clock struck freedom. At that exact second, in a hospital in Bombay, two babies are born. One is Salim Sinai, the child of privilege, pale-skinned with a nose that dominates his face. The other is Shiva, the son of a poor street performer, fierce-eyed, clenched like a fist. A nurse named Mary Pereira, swept up by romantic ideals and guilt over her own life, switches the two infants. In a single impulsive act, destiny flips upside down. The child of wealth becomes the child of poverty, and the poor man's son is raised among chandeliers and imported rugs. From that fateful night, Rushdie's story unfurls like an ancient tapestry, part memory, part myth, part confession. Salim tells his story years later, sitting in a pickle factory, his body literally cracking apart from within. He speaks to Padma, his companion and audience, as he struggles to hold his story together before he crumbles completely. To understand one life, he says, you have to swallow the world. That's exactly what he does. He swallows it whole. Salim grows up in a bustling Bombay household filled with noise, secrets, and contradictions. His mother, Amina, is devout but restless, caught between faith and love. His father, Ahmed Sinai, a businessman full of colonial ambition, drinks gin and dreams of becoming a modern man. Their home feels like a miniature India, divided by languages, gods, and the weight of history. As Salim grows, strange powers stir within him. His enormous nose begins to smell emotions and detect lies. And one night, during a fit of fever, he discovers he can hear voices, hundreds of them, chattering, laughing, arguing, crying. These are the voices of the Midnight's children, all born in that first hour of independence, each gifted with a different supernatural ability. There's a girl who can change her sex at will, a boy who can travel through mirrors, a child who can move things with his mind. Salim gathers them in his imagination, forming what he calls the Midnight's Children Conference. Through their telepathic meetings, he dreams of uniting the children of India, all religions, all regions, all powers, into one harmonious whole. But the dream does not last. As India itself begins to fracture, partitioned, bloodied, and bewildered, the voices in Salim's head turn on one another. Politics, greed, and suspicion poison even this magical brotherhood. Salim, trying to hold the center, finds it slipping away. The novel moves restlessly through decades, like history told through fever dreams. The family leaves Bombay for Pakistan. The world outside mirrors the world within, both filled with betrayals and shifting loyalties. Salim loses his memory during the Bangladesh War, becomes a nameless soldier wandering through blood-soaked fields, and only later regains fragments of who he was. By the time he returns to India, he's a man broken in body and spirit. The emergency has been declared under Indira Gandhi's rule. The government hunts down the Midnight's children, sterilizing them, erasing their powers, as if the nation itself wants to forget the chaos of its own birth. Salim is captured, interrogated, and mutilated, his magical powers stripped away. Yet even as his body cracks, he clings to one last act of defiance, storytelling. He begins to write his story, preserving it in jars of pickle and chutney. Each jar a chapter, each flavor a memory. What has been broken, he says, can be remade through stories. The novel ends as it began, with Salim's voice trembling between hope and exhaustion. He knows his body will crumble into dust, but he also knows his story will live on. "I will be remembered," he whispers, "in pickle jars, in memories, in the cracks of this country." Rushdie's narrative moves like a monsoon, wild, unpredictable, generous. Beneath the magic and madness lies something heartbreakingly simple: the story of a boy trying to make sense of where he comes from, and a country trying to remember who it is. The architecture of memory, how Rushdie turns chaos into form. Every memory is an act of invention. That's what Midnight's Children teaches us from its very first breath. The story doesn't unfold in straight lines. It spirals, doubles back, interrupts itself. Salim, our unreliable narrator, keeps apologizing for losing track of time. He forgets things, remembers others too vividly, and occasionally admits that he might be making it up. But that's the point. Rushdie's novel is not built like a house. It's built like a mind. When you read Midnight's Children, you don't just follow a plot. You wander through a labyrinth of memory, where each corridor opens into another story. Salim's recollections come like waves, tender, angry, comic, tragic. And he warns us early on, "Please believe that I am falling apart." The very structure of the book mirrors this disintegration. Time is elastic. History becomes personal. Private mistakes and public disasters overlap until they feel inseparable. Rushdie uses this fragmentation deliberately. He once said that the broken mirror may actually be as valuable as the one which is supposedly unflawed. That broken mirror is Salim's voice. He is both the storyteller and the story being told, both historian and casualty of history. The form itself becomes a confession that no single version of India or of life can ever hold the truth. What's extraordinary is how Rushdie makes this chaos readable. The novel is alive with energy, propelled by a rhythm that feels oral, almost musical. Salim addresses his listener, Padma, as though we're eavesdropping on a private conversation. "Padma," I pause to wipe my brow, he says, or "Padma, don't look so angry." Through these moments, Rushdie collapses the wall between narrator and audience. We are pulled into the act of remembering. We become part of the story's creation. This is not just clever narration, it's a philosophical act. Rushdie transforms memory into architecture and storytelling into survival. Salim's desperate need to speak, to preserve his life before he falls apart, echoes the human urge to make meaning out of disaster. Every repetition, every correction, every half-remembered incident becomes a brick in the fragile house of identity he's building. And yet, beneath the humor and wordplay, there's pain. Salim's narration is haunted by guilt. Guilt for surviving. Guilt for being mistaken for someone else's child. Guilt for carrying the burden of a nation's story. Each chapter feels like an attempt to write himself back into existence. In this sense, Midnight's Children is not just a novel about India's birth. It's a novel about remembering after trauma. When Salim says, "I am the sum total of everything that went before me," it's both a declaration and a curse. To carry history within you means to never escape it. Rushdie captures that beautifully through the novel's shifting tones, from comedy to confession, from lyrical reverie to political fury. It feels like listening to someone remembering and rewriting at the same time, because that's what post-colonial memory is, a constant rewriting of what was broken. Even the physical setting of Salim's storytelling, the pickle factory, becomes part of this metaphor. Each jar represents a memory preserved, seasoned, distorted by time. As he narrates, he pickles the past, turning it into something both pungent and enduring. It's not perfect preservation, it's transformation through flavor, through decay. In that sense, Midnight's Children doesn't seek order, it celebrates the mess. Rushdie's genius lies in finding form within fragmentation, rhythm within contradiction. He shows that remembering is not about accuracy, but about endurance. Stories, like nations, survive not because they are pure, but because they refuse to stop being told. Magic, myth, and the search for meaning. If Midnight's Children were only a political novel, it would still be great. But what makes it unforgettable is the layer of magic that hums beneath its surface, a current of myth that turns history into dream. Rushdie calls this the truth made strange. Through magic, he gives shape to things too vast or painful to describe directly: freedom, violence, faith, identity. Salim's world is one where miracles and absurdities live side by side. His nose can sniff out lies, a woman can pick up radio signals from her fillings, and a child can alter gender at will. It sounds ridiculous until you realize this is exactly how memory works. When people remember trauma, they often describe it through exaggeration, through myth. Rushdie understands this intimately. He uses the unreal not to escape reality, but to reveal it. There is an ancient rhythm in the book, an echo of India's storytelling tradition. Each page feels like it could be told aloud beside a fire, with a crowd leaning forward. Rushdie once said that the Mahabharata and Ramayana were part of his literary DNA, epics where gods and mortals mix freely, where the world itself seems enchanted. In Midnight's Children, he fuses that mythic inheritance with the irony of modernism. The result is a style that feels both sacred and satirical, a myth retold by a skeptic who still wants to believe. Through the Midnight's Children conference, we see this most clearly. Imagine hundreds of gifted children scattered across India, each representing a piece of the nation's soul. Their telepathic connection is the fantasy of unity, the dream that India, with all its religions, languages, and wounds, could somehow think together. But as the children grow, the magic collapses. Suspicion, rivalry, and politics enter even this enchanted space. It's heartbreaking because it's true. No miracle can survive the machinery of power. Rushdie never romanticizes the supernatural. His magic is fragile, humorous, and often grotesque. The miracles in his world come with consequences. Salim's telepathy isolates him. Shiva's strength turns him cruel. Parvati's witchcraft leads her to tragedy. In this sense, magic in Midnight's Children is a language of longing. It expresses what history cannot, the yearning to belong, to believe that destiny has meaning. And yet, beneath the magic, there's always history. Every impossible event carries a political shadow. When the Midnight's children are sterilized during the emergency, the act is both literal and symbolic, the state erasing its future, silencing the generation born from independence. What was once magical becomes monstrous. It's as if Rushdie is saying that magic dies the moment power tries to control it. The mythic pattern runs deep in Salim's journey. His story echoes the structure of an epic hero: miraculous birth, fall from grace, exile, return. But Rushdie twists the form. Salim is no perfect hero. He's confused, clumsy, allergic to certainty. His powers don't save him, they overwhelm him. In turning the epic upside down, Rushdie tells us something profound about modern identity, that our lives are not heroic tales, but messy improvisations. There's also something quietly theological about Rushdie's use of myth. He doesn't reject faith outright, but he humanizes it. The divine in Midnight's Children is not above us, it's inside us, cracked and flawed. The sacred moments in the novel don't arrive with trumpets and miracles, but in accidents, misunderstandings, acts of love or cruelty. It's as if Rushdie is whispering that the line between myth and reality, between holiness and human confusion, has always been paper thin. Consider the motif of smell, that strange power of Salim's nose. Smell is the most ancient sense, tied to memory, instinct, and emotion. Through it, Rushdie creates a magical realism rooted in the body. Salim's nose is his oracle and his curse, a reminder that history is something we feel before we understand. When he says he can smell danger, smell death, it's not fantasy, it's intuition sharpened by trauma. Rushdie's magic is therefore not about spectacle, but about seeing differently. He transforms the absurd into metaphor. The impossible becomes a lens through which we glimpse the truth. In one passage, Salim says, "Reality can have metaphorical content. That does not make it less real." That sentence could be the novel's credo. By blending myth and history, Rushdie reinvents both. He shows that myth is not an escape from history, but a way of surviving it. And history, when told through imagination, becomes less like a textbook and more like a human heart, fallible, passionate, alive. Language as rebellion, the revolution of the chutnified tongue. Every empire leaves behind a ghost, and sometimes that ghost speaks in the colonizer's tongue. After independence, English remained India's uneasy inheritance, both a tool of power and a symbol of oppression. But in Midnight's Children, Salman Rushdie takes that ghost and teaches it to dance. His English doesn't sound like Oxford, it sounds like Bombay. It's noisy, colorful, chutnified, as Rushdie himself called it, spiced with Hindi slang, Urdu poetry, and the quick wit of Indian street life. The sentences spill over with excess, tumbling forward like markets on a Sunday morning. Through this exuberance, Rushdie performs a linguistic rebellion. He takes the language of empire and floods it with the life of the colonized world. It's more than style, it's identity work. In the colonial era, to speak English meant to sound civilized, to erase one's accent, one's chaos. Rushdie refuses that. He fills his prose with noise, digression, confusion, the very things empire tried to suppress. His sentences bend grammar until it trembles. They loop, argue, contradict. Yet somehow, they still sing. This is what critic Homi Bhabha calls mimicry and menace. The colonized speaking the master's language, but making it misbehave. Every joke, every wordplay, every pun in Midnight's Children becomes a small act of defiance. When Salim declares, "Most of what matters in our lives takes place in our absence," the line feels both philosophical and sly, as though mocking the colonial habit of telling our stories for us. Rushdie's narrative voice has the rhythm of oral tradition. It pauses to explain, argues with itself, breaks into anecdotes. This isn't the cool distance of Western modernism. It's the heat of the bazaar, where language is alive and argumentative. By writing in English the way Indians speak, Rushdie creates a third language, neither colonial nor purely native, but gloriously hybrid. Through this voice, Midnight's Children becomes a living archive of how language shapes power. When Salim's family moves between cities, religions, and nations, words become both bridges and weapons. The way people speak, clipped Urdu, lilting Gujarati, British accented English, reveals who they are and who they wish to be. Rushdie listens to that music, then turns it into literature. Even the novel's structure mirrors the logic of conversation. Salim keeps addressing Padma, his skeptical listener. "Padma, are you still there?" "Padma, stop frowning." This device is genius because it breaks the illusion of literary authority. The storyteller no longer speaks from a throne of omniscience. He speaks from the ground, negotiating, arguing, pleading to be understood. In a way, this is Rushdie's answer to colonial literature's arrogance. Instead of claiming to know everything, he admits that truth must be earned through dialogue. There's also something deeply comic in how language betrays Salim. He is a man who literally falls apart, whose words leak like his body. When he forgets something, he writes around it. When history becomes unbearable, he changes the subject. Rushdie turns linguistic breakdown into emotional honesty. In doing so, he proves that imperfection, grammatical or moral, is more human than any polished rhetoric. The most famous metaphor for this comes, of course, from the pickles. Each jar represents not just memory, but language itself, preserved, fermented, altered by time. Salim says, "To pickle is to give immortality." His storytelling is a form of linguistic preservation, but also transformation. What he tells us is not the pure history of India, but the chutney version, tangy, layered, contradictory, and full of aftertaste. Rushdie's linguistic playfulness also carries philosophical weight. It challenges the Western idea that language should clarify. In Midnight's Children, language does the opposite. It multiplies meaning, creating a world where every word has a shadow. That ambiguity is the novel's freedom. It refuses to be reduced, to be summarized neatly in a textbook or ideology. It's no coincidence that Midnight's Children was written during the rise of post-colonial self-expression. Around the same time, writers from Africa, the Caribbean, and Latin America were also remixing colonial languages, Chinua Achebe, V. S. Naipaul, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. But Rushdie's voice is uniquely Indian in its rhythm and humor. You can almost hear the gossip of aunties, the sarcasm of cab drivers, the overlapping chaos of a subcontinent in mid-conversation. In the end, Rushdie's English is less about rebellion against Britain and more about liberation for India, the right to speak in one's own tone. Through language, he reclaims narrative authority. Salim's voice, messy and magnificent, insists that confusion itself is a kind of truth. So when we read Midnight's Children, we're not just reading a novel, we're listening to a revolution. The English language, once a tool of empire, becomes an instrument of laughter, resistance, and love. The Self and the Nation, one body, many fractures. Salim Sinai's greatest curse is that he cannot separate his body from the body of his country. Every wound he suffers seems to echo through the land. Every shift in the nation's fate seems to rearrange his bones. This fusion of self and state lies at the heart of Midnight's Children. The idea that identity, whether personal or collective, is always stitched together by history's trembling hands. From the moment of his birth, Salim becomes a living allegory. He is literally born with the nation, and his body becomes its unreliable map. His nose, that grand, comic, grotesque feature, becomes a compass for destiny. When he bleeds, it feels like India's own open wound. And when he loses his memory, the country itself forgets what freedom meant. It's an image so bold that it could easily collapse under its own weight, but Rushdie's genius is to make it feel human. Salim isn't a symbol walking on two legs. He's a confused, desperate man trying to survive in a story too large for him. At first, he believes his telepathic gift, the power to connect all the Midnight's Children, is a divine mission. He imagines himself as a kind of spiritual parliamentarian, uniting the divided voices of India in a single conversation. For a moment, this dream feels possible. The conference inside his mind becomes a symbol of post-independence hope, a country of many tongues learning to think together. But then comes fragmentation. The children fall into arguments, old prejudices return, jealousy and ambition creep in. Salim realizes that unity built on magic cannot withstand the realities of class, religion, and politics. This breakdown mirrors the unraveling of India's first decades. The optimism of independence gives way to partition, war, and corruption. The dream of democracy hardens into authoritarianism during the emergency. And just as the nation becomes a battleground of competing truths, Salim's own identity splinters. He loses his family, his memory, even his name. Each time he rebuilds himself, history knocks the pieces apart again. Rushdie's storytelling makes this collapse strangely tender. He doesn't blame the characters for their failures. He treats them with affection, as if chaos were simply the natural state of being human. When Salim admits, "I was the victim of a series of accidents, as are we all," it's not resignation, it's wisdom. It's Rushdie's way of saying that identity is not something we possess, but something we continually invent. The contrast between Salim and Shiva deepens this theme. They are twins by fate, opposites in spirit. Salim is soft, imaginative, a dreamer who believes in connection. Shiva is fierce, cynical, the embodiment of raw power. Where Salim wants to unite, Shiva wants to conquer. Their rivalry stretches through the entire novel like a heartbeat of the nation, idealism versus realism, compassion versus control. One builds worlds in his mind, the other breaks them with his fists. By the time we reach the later chapters, Salim's body begins to disintegrate. His skin cracks, his bones grind, and he imagines himself turning into dust. It's a haunting image, but also a beautiful one. Rushdie transforms decay into meaning. Just as India is still reshaping itself after every crisis, Salim's body refuses to die completely. He holds himself together through words. Storytelling becomes the final act of resistance. It's here that Midnight's Children touches something almost existential. What does it mean to survive when everything around you has fallen apart? For Rushdie, survival is not endurance, it's reinvention. Salim can't control the chaos of history, but he can give it a voice. In telling his story, in pickling it, as he says, he creates continuity out of collapse. There is also a quiet feminist undercurrent running through this idea. While men like Salim and Sheva embody the extremes of dream and destruction, the women in the novel, Amina, Mary Pereira, Parvati, Padma, carry the emotional truth of endurance. They rebuild what the men ruin. They preserve memory through care, through faith, through stubborn love. In this sense, the women are the true architects of continuity, the silent keepers of meaning. Salim's voice may dominate the pages, but their presence anchors him in reality. Rushdie's portrayal of India is not purely political, it's deeply psychological. He shows how the trauma of colonization leaves behind a fractured sense of self. Salim's confusion about his birth, the knowledge that he was switched, that he is not who he was told to be, mirrors the identity crisis of a nation emerging from foreign rule. Both are trying to answer the same question: who am I now that I am free? This is why Midnight's Children still resonates today. It captures that fragile moment when freedom feels both triumphant and terrifying. To be born into independence means to inherit both the gift and the burden of self-definition. Rushdie doesn't offer closure because nations, like people, never stop becoming. In the end, when Salim imagines himself shattering into 600 million particles, each representing one Indian, the image feels paradoxically hopeful. It's not death, it's diffusion. His self dissolves into the crowd, becoming part of the collective story. Rushdie leaves us with the sense that identity isn't unity, but multiplicity, not a single voice, but a choir. As the music fades, a slow blend of tabla and heartbeats, we realize what Rushdie has done. He has taken the chaos of a nation and turned it into an anatomy of the human soul. The cracks in Salim's body, the noise in his mind, the dissonance in his family, they're not signs of failure, they're signs of life. Reception and legacy: how Midnight's Children changed the way we tell stories. When Midnight's Children burst onto the scene in 1981, it was less like a book launch and more like a detonation. Critics didn't quite know what to call it. Some said it was postmodern, others magical realist. Some called it an epic, and a few even whispered that it was blasphemous. But almost everyone agreed on one thing: no one had ever written English like this before. In Britain, reviewers hailed it as a revelation. The Times literary supplement called it a work of audacious brilliance. The Guardian praised its energy and wit, describing it as India talking back to the empire. Western readers were astonished by the way Rushdie's sentences seemed to shimmer with color and noise, a new English, unashamedly hybrid, proudly impure. It was as if someone had finally turned up the volume on a language that had always been polite. In India, the reaction was more complicated. Some celebrated Rushdie as a national genius who had given voice to modern India's contradictions. Others were uneasy. Critics accused him of exaggerating, of writing for Western tastes, of turning the country's pain into exotic spectacle. And yet, even those who disapproved couldn't ignore the power of his vision. He had done something monumental. He had taken the messy, multilingual experience of India and made it global. The novel went on to win the Booker Prize that year, and then, astonishingly, the Booker of Bookers in 1993, awarded to the best of all Booker winners in the prize's first quarter century. 15 years later, it won again, this time the best of the Bookers. It's rare for any book to stay that alive in the public imagination, but Midnight's Children continues to haunt readers and inspire writers worldwide. Yet Rushdie's success didn't come without friction. Ijaz Ahmad, the Marxist critic, accused him of turning colonial trauma into postmodern entertainment, arguing that the novel's humor and digressions disguise the suffering of the poor. Feminist scholars such as Meenakshi Mukherjee and Gayatri Spivak pointed out that while the men in the book are given mythic dimension, the women, Amina, Padma, Parvati, often serve the story's emotional or moral needs without full agency of their own. These debates were not attacks but recognitions of complexity. Rushdie's novel became a mirror reflecting not only the nation's contradictions, but also the fault lines of literary theory itself. Academia quickly adopted Midnight's Children as a cornerstone of post-colonial literature. It became the text through which entire generations studied hybridity, fragmentation, and narrative power. For theorists like Homi Bhabha, Salim's fragmented self symbolized the third space, that fertile zone between cultures where new identities are born. For others, Rushdie's humor and excess represented resistance, the idea that laughter itself can be a weapon against tyranny. Outside the classroom, Midnight's Children also shaped culture. It gave courage to later writers, Arundhati Roy, Zadie Smith, Mohsin Hamid, Kiran Desai, to write with similar exuberance, unafraid to mix the sacred and the profane, the political and the absurd. Without Rushdie, it's hard to imagine the god of small things or white teeth or the reluctant fundamentalist existing in quite the same form. Its influence reached beyond literature. Deepa Mehta's 2012 film adaptation, scripted by Rushdie himself, attempted to bring this sprawling novel to the screen, an impossible task, perhaps, but a fascinating one. The film divided audiences. Some found it visually stunning, but too compressed. Others admired its courage in translating the untranslatable. Still, its very existence proved how deeply the novel had penetrated cultural consciousness. And then, of course, there is the shadow of the Satanic Verses, published 7 years later. When controversy and fatwa engulfed Rushdie's life, Midnight's Children gained an unintended new layer of meaning. It began to be read not only as a national allegory, but as a testament to freedom of expression, a writer's right to tell the story as he sees it, without fear. Salim's crumbling body, preserved through words, became an emblem for Rushdie himself, wounded by history but refusing to be silenced. In the decades since, Midnight's Children has continued to spark lively conversations on social media and in classrooms. On Reddit and TikTok, readers still debate whether it's genius or chaos. Some praise its imagination, others confess they couldn't finish it. On Twitter, one post reads, "I don't know if I understood half of Midnight's Children, but I know I felt all of it. That might be the truest review of all. Because to read this novel is not to grasp every detail, it's to be swept into its pulse. It's to hear India speaking to itself, confused, contradictory, alive. It's a reminder that literature's power doesn't lie in clarity, but in resonance." So what is Midnight's Children's legacy? Really, it changed the way the English novel breathes. It taught writers that you could take the colonial language and make it sound like home. It taught readers that history could be magical, that politics could be funny, and that identity could be told through chaos without apology. It blurred the line between myth and memoir, between the personal and the political, until they became one beating heart. Even today, its voice feels prophetic. In an era when nations everywhere struggle over identity and truth, Salim's cry, to understand one life, you have to swallow the world, rings louder than ever. Conclusion: the story that refuses to end. By the time we reach the final pages of Midnight's Children, something remarkable has happened. What began as a national epic ends as an intimate confession. Salim Sinai, once the voice of an entire generation, is now a man talking to us from the edge of dissolution, his body cracking, his story leaking like the jar of chutney he stirs beside him. Yet in that breaking, there's beauty. Rushdie transforms fragility into a form of grace. Throughout this journey, we've seen how Rushdie built his masterpiece from fragments, how memory became structure, how myth gave shape to loss, how language itself rebelled to create new meaning. We've met Salim, Shiva, Mary, Yamina, and Padma, each carrying a shard of India's vast, impossible identity. And we felt the weight of a truth that refuses to be simple, that history is never linear, that freedom is never pure, and that every story is both wound and healing. When Rushdie wrote Midnight's Children, he was not only capturing a country's past, he was inventing a new way to tell it. His voice invited readers from every corner of the world to see India not as an exotic myth or a political case study, but as a living consciousness, messy, humorous, contradictory, and magnificent. In doing so, he redefined what a novel could be. There is a line near the end of the book that always lingers with me. To pickle is to give immortality. Salim knows that nothing he preserves will stay pure. Memory ferments, flavors change, stories evolve. Yet he keeps pickling anyway, because that is what humans do. We preserve what we love, even when it hurts us. We tell stories to keep from vanishing. And maybe that's why this novel continues to resonate more than 40 years later. We live in a time when nations again struggle with identity, when truth feels unstable, when the noise of the world threatens to drown out meaning. Midnight's Children reminds us that chaos is not the enemy of truth. It's the soil from which meaning grows. Rushdie once said, "The only people who see the whole picture are the ones who step outside the frame." Salim never could, but through him, Rushdie did. He gave us a story that stands both inside and outside history, a mirror and a myth, a confession and a carnival. And so we end where we began, a baby's cry at midnight, a country's first breath, a storyteller trying to hold it all together before the pieces fall apart. Midnight's Children is not just a novel you read, it's a novel you inhabit. It asks you to listen, to forgive, to imagine. So let me ask you this. When a story becomes part of a nation's memory, does it still belong to the author, or does it belong to everyone who reads it, argues with it, and remembers it differently? I'd love to hear what you think. Share your thoughts in the comments, your favorite scene, your interpretation, your confusion. If you enjoyed this journey through Rushdie's world, click like, subscribe to Echoes of Books, and if you'd like to support more essays like this, you can donate through the link below. Every gesture helps keep this conversation alive between books, between centuries, between us. Echoes that keep speaking. Thank you for spending this time inside a story that refuses to stay silent. Midnight's Children isn't just a novel about India's birth. It's about the birth of storytelling itself, about how words can rebuild what history breaks. Every book we discuss on Echoes of Books is more than paper and ink. It's a conversation that begins decades ago and somehow finds its way to us. Through whispers, through translations, through the small courage it takes to imagine differently. If this story moved you, puzzled you, or made you look at the world a little sideways, then it has already done its work. If you'd like to see more essays like this, stories that dig deep, that look for the humanity hiding beneath the sentences, please subscribe to the channel. Share the video with someone who loves books, or who needs to fall in love with them again. And if you want to help us keep creating, you can donate through the link below. Every cup of coffee, every word, every quiet moment of attention, it all keeps this space alive. Because that's what Echoes of Books is about, keeping stories alive by listening to them together. This has been Midnight's Children, told through memory, myth, and the miracle of survival. I'm Liam. Thank you for reading, for listening, and for remembering.